Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and it looks like patch 11.17 is actually arriving very soon. It's finally got a release date, and it's going to be a catch-up update to help players prepare for the patch 11.2, rather known as the upcoming Season 3 content. We're offering additional gear bonuses for max level characters, but also leveling bonuses for any of you looking to catch up future alts. There's going to be new storylines to explore, especially dealing with the Arathi Highlands campaign. There's going to be additional challenges and rewards specifically for Delve players, lore walking, which is going to be a new way for you to experience WoW's lore and get a sneak peek preview of some of the upcoming content, but also so much more. So I wanted to go over what this patch has on the offer for any of you that are looking to potentially jump back in for 11.17 in less than 2 weeks from today, as this is going to be one of the best times to help prepare if you are looking to play in Season 3 content and are just looking to get a little bit of catch up, but also a little bit of rewards before the seasonal content is over. As always, if you guys want to see more regular updates for the More Within expansion, as well as any future updates, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. So it looks like patch 11.17 actually finally has a release date, launching officially on the June of 17th, which is in less than 2 weeks. Tuesday for the region of NA, and I'm pretty sure it's still Wednesday for the region of EU. I don't think this patch is getting a global launch like the Dastardly Duos did or anything like that. And the update is going to come in with the new Arathi Highlands campaign, where we'll be able to join Faerun Lothar and Dallas Trollbane in a mission to soothe some of the rising tensions between the Arathi of Arathi Highlands as well as the newly resettled Magar Orcs, with a third faction kind of trying to be a thorn in the side of both of them, with potentially a rising threat that may become a bigger foe, maybe in the future updates, or potentially as a possible enemy for us to combat within the Midnight expansion. And from this storyline, without spoiling the actual questline itself, you will be able to earn 2 faction tabards, one for the Arathi, one for the Magar, as well as Faerun's shoulder mug, which I think would look amazing on so many different paladin sets. Turbulent Tramways is also making its way back in as part of 11.17, with this patch being a huge catch-up update. Time walking weeks back to back will allow players to catch up both in gear as well as in terms of leveling. For max level characters, you'll be able to get hero track items from the weekly time walking quests, where you either gotta defeat 5 time walking dungeons or potentially 5 time walking raid bosses from instances such as the Burning Crusade, Black Temple, the Wrath of Lich King Ulduar, or the Firelands of Cataclysm. So either one of those will let you earn hero track items from the Liberation of Undermine raid to help those characters get some gear ahead of Season 3 content. So when you're diving into a brand new season, you should at least have some item level on that character. For any low-level characters, low-level alts in particular, you'll be able to get bonus experience when you run those Turbulent Timeways dungeons, adding you up additional EXP that helps you catch up a character rather quickly. And with the way they change time walking dungeons, you can essentially start doing them at level 10 all the way to max level, and no matter what time walking week it is, whatever expansion it is, they're usually fairly efficient when it comes to spamming out content until they reach a max level of 80. Time walking Turbulent Timeways also will grant us a brand new mount at the end of a run. As you do time walking and participate in time walking runs consecutively over a number of weeks, you'll be able to work towards an achievement that awards you a mount. This time is the Shadowlands' Tazavesh Dungeon Pirate Dragon mount. For those of you that never played back in Shadowlands or experienced the Dungeon of Tazavesh, it just looks like a cool time walking dragon thing. But for any of you that played back in Shadowlands, this is your pirate captain that you'll finally be able to ride in Skyriding, which is absolutely amazing to see. A mount that many players from that era really wanted for a very long time. With changes to time walking, we also get BFA time walking, as Battle for Azeroth joins the time walking rotations. It's been that long of a time, and it's going to give us an opportunity to dive into BFA time walking dungeons. Specific instances right now are Freehold, Ataldazar, Temple Sothralis, and Waycrest Manor, which are dungeons that we've seen previously from Mythic Plus content. However, 2 other dungeons that haven't been in any Mythic Plus seasons since, King's Rest as well as Shrine of the Storm, will also be joining the roster. From the BFA time walking, we also get a brand new vendor who has new mounts for you to obtain, 1 unique mount for the Alliance themed as well as Horde themed, though either member of any faction can purchase both mounts, as well as civilian transport clothing, both for Zendalari styles as well as the Kotiran styles, as well as a bunch of toys, pets, and catch-up gear, and a bunch of reputation tokens if you're still behind the reps from BFA factions. Lore walking is another feature that joins the patch 11.1.7 as a new way for you to experience WoW lore, but actually through in-game, not having to go and read wikis or watch videos covering the lore, or maybe even buy books that cover some of the main aspects of WoW's previous history. Right now, there will be 3 lore walking that will be made available immediately with 11.1.7 launching. Arthas' journey to becoming the Lich King himself, which is definitely worth a playthrough even if you're familiar with the tale, as it will give you an idea of what lore walking is like. From there, we also have the history of ethereals, which may be hinting as to what patch 11.2 or even possibly some of the midnight content is going to be, as well as the backstory of Xal'atath before she became the Black Blade of the Empire, the artifact weapon that many Shadow Priests will be familiar with. But before becoming the blade of an artifact weapon, she was so much more than that, and that lore walking covers her storyline. There's also going to be more stories to be added in the future to give players new opportunities to experience some of the important WoW lore, but in a very different format where you actually get to play through it and learn it directly through in-game events, rather than, like I said, reading articles, wikis, or stories, which I think is a much better way for you to just experience WoW lore and be caught up with all of the main events leading up throughout the World Soul Saga. Another piece of content that will be available with this patch is Overcharged Delves, which gives Delve players a brand new challenges for certain instances, and those instances are going to be, as the name implies, overcharged. Kriegville's Rest, Skittering Breach, Spiral Weave, Nightfall Sanctum, Fungal Folly, and Side Street Sluice will now be overcharged, which means they have an extra affix enabled within that delve, which makes them a little bit harder hitting, more challenges, new enemies, a bunch of traps scattered everywhere, which all have like very Titan-esque inspired elements to it now, on top of the original Goblin and fungal and the kobold enemies that you would normally have, so just additional challenges while you do your run. With that, you also will be able to slay enemies and collect fragments from them to then power up consoles to make challenges a little bit less bad for you. So if, let's say, you're struggling at the very beginning with overcharged delves, having a hard time running them on tier 11, over time you will be able to upgrade this console to make those runs a little bit easier, while also being able to get additional bonuses from every single one of your runs. You'll also be able to get a new belt called the Disc, or DISC belt. It has an acronym for it, but otherwise most players will just call it the Disc belt. It will have Titan-esque powers within it, a much higher item level, a free gem socket, and also you'll be able to customize this belt with additional abilities and powers, from being able to zap enemies or grant you secondary stats or be able to heal allies and stuff like that. So it'll be an extra bit of a power gain for Delve players specifically, though I'm pretty sure everybody can get access to this belt from doing the quest line. A smaller update of 11.1.7 is actually a recuperate button. It's a unique button that allows your character to make a little campfire, make a bit of food, and then rest up and recover a bunch of health whenever you're out in the open world. It gives you a little bit of convenience to be able to regenerate your resources instead of sitting down and eating food or having to burn through mana to get yourself healed up and ready to go. It has a very much a Monster Hunter-like aesthetic to it, but it's definitely one of those unique elements that will make open world content and leveling, I think, a little bit easier for certain classes. It's just a nice little touch for players to have some convenience when it comes to quick recovery, and could potentially be pretty decent within certain content. Patch 11.1.7 is also going to be bringing, a little bit later in, the Greedy Emissary event, which is essentially a Diablo crossover event, which launches on July 1st. So this isn't going to be available immediately, it'll actually be available sometime later. Treasure goblins, like from Diablo, will start spawning all throughout Azeroth on a timer. Kill the goblin to get a bunch of Diablo 3 rewards, but also a currency which can be then exchanged to trade up to get recolors of tier 2 class revamped sets. The anniversary edition version of these sets, so they're higher quality, a lot of them being in a very Diablo red aesthetic. From the monk to the paladin, which looks like a fell paladin. The rogues get like a dark version of the Blunkfed, which looks amazing, but most classes are to expect some kind of like a fiery red version of their sets, except for a handful of exceptions. But you get one for every single class, which means even more marks for you to collect. On top of it, during the Greedy Emissary event, we'll have a crossover buff called Collector's Bounty, which allows players to earn more items from legacy content. So think of like older raids and older dungeons, which a lot of players don't run for gear or power gains, but they will run them for transmogs, collectibles, and mounts. So this event is essentially aimed at those players who love mount and potentially mount farming. Blizzard did mention that there's going to be more information on this event, but for now, all that we know is that it promises increased drop rates from legacy content, which could mean maybe higher chances for you to get that mount that you've been chasing after and farming for weeks, if not months. Or maybe higher chances to loot some of those sought after transmog pieces from raids and older dungeons that you've been trying to add to your collection, but they just haven't gotten to drop just yet. More information will surface in the future, but potentially this could be an amazing event for any of you that are big into expanding your collections with more mogs, pets, toys, mounts, and so many other items to add to your collections. 11.17 is also going to be introducing a new feature of Combat Assistant, which is essentially a rotation helper that is now going to be a baseline feature as part of the basic WoW UI. Have you ever ran a dungeon, let's say some of the more casual content, like maybe a time walking instance, and some of the players in those dungeons, let's say they're not trying to play super optimally, but you will find players out there that are trying to play their class but are doing way less damage than that of a tank, maybe even a healer at times. The game itself and WoW's leveling experience for most players doesn't quite really teach you how to play your class super well, if not at all. And the open world content isn't really challenging enough for players to have to learn the rotation to be able to get through that content. So you don't even really need to learn how to play your class well, if not optimally, to be able to get to max level. Because of this, you get players that are coming out of the woodworks into the end game, not really sure how to play their class, and they need to take a lot of time to read up some guides and learn how to play their class properly, but some players don't even know like the information where do you go. For most of you, going to Wowhead or looking up a guide online, it's pretty natural, but it doesn't really quite hit all the players in the same way. So to help increase the standard of class optimization and give players some sort of a resource for it, they're adding a rotation helper into the game to help players optimize the rotation a little bit better, which can be useful tools for new players that just are learning their class or didn't really get the gist of their class while getting to max level, but really are looking to explore opportunity for them to increase their DPS. There'll be two modes for this Combat Assistant. One is a highlight mode, as well as the one button rotation helper. The highlight is there to help you highlight which ability you should be pressing next within your rotation, using a fairly decent optimized resources that Blizzard has access to based on your resource pool, your cooldowns, your procs, and it can actually quickly adjust on the fly, giving you tips and hints as to which buttons you should be pressing next when it comes to your optimal rotation usage. Then you have a second mode called the one button rotation, which essentially allows you to press one keystroke and it plays your rotation for your class abilities for you. So it's a button that plays your class, but it comes with a bit of a caveat, as it will have a much longer GCD in between those spells, making it a far less optimal option compared to you actually pressing your buttons correctly. It'll be a tool that's best for players that are not really familiar with their class, like you maybe just trying out a different spec that you've never played before and you have zero idea what buttons you should be pressing next. Both of these are tools that are meant to be used side by side together to help guide players as to which abilities and spells they should be prioritizing, when they should be using them, and how you should be able to combine those abilities together. And I'm actually excited to see how many mid-core and even more casual players will find this feature useful, as they did actually put a decent bit of work into it so far, adjusting for different classes and playstyles, minus a few bugs here and there. So I wonder how many players will actually find this feature quite helpful when it comes to the end game progression. But with that being said, as always, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give this video a like. I would very much appreciate it. Join our Discord community, especially if you want to keep up with any future updates, as when 11.17 goes live, we'll likely be getting more patch notes and more information regarding updates like 11.2 and even 11.25, because apparently that is also in the works internally. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.